For many years, scientists believed time travel was impossible. Movies made it look exciting, but real science said it could never happen. Time only moves forward. The past is gone forever, or so we were told. But in 2019, a collection of leaked documents appeared online. They were called the ChronoGate Files. At first, people ignored them. The files looked boring, no pictures, no videos, just technical language, numbers, dates, and test reports. But the more people read them, the stranger they became. These documents did not talk about movies or theories. They talked about experiments. The files claimed that a secret government program had built a machine designed not to travel through space, but through time. The project name was ChronoGate. According to the files, ChronoGate was not a vehicle or a tunnel. It was a field, a controlled energy zone that could briefly disconnect an object from normal time. The scientists believed time was not a straight line. They believed it was more like a river, flowing constantly. ChronoGate was designed to step outside that river for just a moment. The document said the first tests were small, very small. A coin was placed inside the ChronoGate chamber. When the machine activated, the coin vanished, only for a fraction of a second. Then it reappeared. At first, everything looked normal. But when scientists checked the coin, they noticed something strange. The date on the coin had changed. It was stamped with a year that had not existed before. The coin had aged differently than the rest of the world. This was the moment the files described as temporal separation achieved. In simple words, time had been broken, just a little. After that, the test became more serious. They placed a digital clock inside the chamber. When the ChronoGate activated, the clock reappeared, showing a time that did not match any time zone on Earth. Not past, not future, something else. The files say the clock ran backward for exactly 3 seconds before freezing forever. Then came the living tests. This is where the files become disturbing. A mouse was placed inside the ChronoGate. When it returned, it was alive. But it did not behave like a normal mouse. It avoided light. It reacted before sounds happened. It seemed to know things before they occurred. The files describe it as out of sync with causality. Cause and effect were no longer normal for it. The mouse was euthanized 2 days later after it suddenly stopped existing. Not died, stopped existing. The space where it was became empty, as if it had never been there. After that incident, the documents say the project should have stopped, but it didn't, because something else happened. During one test, ChronoGate activated without command. No one pressed anything. The machine turned itself on. Sensors detected a signal coming from the other side. Not from the past, not from the future, but from a point outside the timeline. The files describe it as a return signal. Something had noticed them. Shortly after, strange events began occurring around the facility. Cameras recorded shadows moving before people entered rooms. Security logs showed doors unlocking seconds before access cards were scanned. One document mentions a scientist who received an email reply to a message he had not sent yet. The reply simply said, "You shouldn't have opened it." Then came the most terrifying part of the ChronoGate files. Human testing. The volunteer's name is blacked out in every document. The files say the subject entered the ChronoGate for 0.8 seconds. Less than a blink. When the subject returned, he screamed. Not in pain and fear. He reportedly said he saw layers of time, stacked on top of each other. Different versions of the same moment happening at once. He said some timelines were dark. Some were empty, some were broken. And in many of them, humans were gone. The subject aged rapidly after the test. Not physically, mentally. He spoke as if he had lived hundreds of years. He kept repeating one sentence. Time is watching us now. 3 days later, he vanished from his hospital bed. No cameras recorded it, no alarms triggered. His bed was still warm. The ChronoGate files end suddenly. After the ChronoGate files disappeared from public websites, copies still survived. People shared them quietly in private forums, encrypted chats, and dark corners of the internet. What most people didn't notice was something strange. The files themselves began to change. Readers reported that sentences appeared differently each time they opened the documents. Dates shifted, names vanished. Paragraphs rewrote themselves. Some claimed the files were updating in real time. One user said a line appeared at the bottom of a page that wasn't there before. "You are reading this later than expected." Another reported seeing their own name briefly appear in a test log before disappearing again. Scientists who studied the leaks began to believe ChronoGate was not just an experiment. It was a door, not to the past, not to the future, but to a place where all possible timelines overlap. The files describe this place using one word, the continuum. According to the documents, the continuum is where time branches are created. Every decision, every chance moment, every possible outcome exists there at once. ChronoGate didn't let humans travel through time. It let time look back at us. One leaked audio transcript describes a late-night conversation between two senior researchers. One asks, "What if time isn't passive?" The other replies, "Then we just taught it how to observe." After this realization, the experiments changed. They stopped sending objects through ChronoGate. Instead, they began listening. The machine was adjusted to receive signals only. No energy output, no field creation, just listening. What they recorded was described as noise at first. Static pulses, random signals, but then patterns emerged. The signals repeated. They followed sequences, almost like language. One engineer wrote that the signals matched mathematical constants that humans should not have been able to detect yet. Another claimed the signals predicted solar flares days before they occurred. The most disturbing discovery came when timestamps on the recordings were examined. Some signals were dated years in the future. Others were dated before the invention of computers. Time was sending messages, and it wasn't random. The ChronoGate Files suggest that certain disasters may have been warnings. Unexplained system failures, sudden scientific breakthroughs, strange accidents that pushed humanity in specific directions. One document questions whether famous historical moments were truly accidents, wars that ended suddenly, discoveries made by chance, leaders who survived impossible situations. What if time adjusted itself to protect something or prevent something? One section of the files discusses a frightening theory, that time behaves like a self-correcting system.
If humanity threatens the stability of the timeline, the system intervenes.
Not violently, subtly. Memories change, people disappear. Events rewrite themselves. The Mandela Effect, according to these files, is not a mistake of memory. It is a patch, a correction, small enough that most people don't notice, but large enough to keep the timeline stable. The ChronoGate scientists believed they triggered a defensive response. By opening the gate, humanity announced itself as a threat. And now time was watching. One final leaked note explains why the program truly ended. Not because it failed, but because the signals changed tone. The patterns became simpler, shorter, more direct. The last confirmed message translated by the team was just 6 words long. "You were not meant to arrive." After that message, ChronoGate went silent. No more signals, no more anomalies, no more warnings. Some believe this silence is a relief. Others believe it's worse. Because silence doesn't mean absence, it means observation. And if time really is aware, if it really can correct itself, then every strange feeling you've ever had suddenly makes sense. Déjà vu. That moment when time feels delayed. That sense that something already happened. Maybe those are echoes, left behind by corrections you were never supposed to remember. And maybe the ChronoGate was never destroyed. Maybe it succeeded. And the reason the world feels different now is because we crossed a line time we'll never forget. After the silence began, researchers expected the world to return to normal. But normal never came back. Instead, small irregularities started appearing everywhere. Clocks drifting out of sync for no reason. Digital timestamps jumping forward or backward by a few milliseconds. Flight recorders logging moments that never officially occurred. Security cameras capturing frames that didn't belong to any known time. At first, these were dismissed as errors, but the errors were too consistent. They followed a pattern that matched the same mathematical sequences found in the ChronoGate signals. This is when a terrifying idea formed among the scientists. ChronoGate did not open a door and close it. It created a reference point. Time now had something to compare itself against. Before ChronoGate, time only flowed. After ChronoGate, time had memory. Some physicists believed the machine acted like a mirror. When humanity looked into time, time looked back and marked the moment. From that point forward, the timeline was no longer natural. It was observed, and anything observed can be adjusted. One classified report described reality as entering a monitored state. This meant events were allowed to happen only if they did not threaten overall stability. When something dangerous emerged, small corrections were applied. A delay here, a malfunction there, a memory altered just enough. People began reporting shared memories of things that officially never existed. Logos changed, maps changed. Famous quotes changed. Entire events felt real to millions of people but were erased from records. The ChronoGate files suggested these weren't mistakes. They were edits. Time was smoothing over problems. One document compared it to autocorrect for reality. If a version of the future became too unstable, the timeline adjusted itself slightly backward and tried again. Not a full reset, just enough to stay on course. That's why history feels familiar even when it changes. That's why some people feel like they've lived this moment before. They have, in a version that didn't survive. The files also warned about something worse. What happens if corrections stop working? What happens if the system can no longer stabilize the timeline? One theory suggested that time has limits. Too many corrections create fractures. Too many edits weaken the structure. And ChronoGate may have pushed it too far. A leaked simulation showed what happens when fractures overlap. Timelines begin bleeding into each other. Memories cross, events feel delayed or rushed. Reality feels thin, some people become sensitive to it. They notice glitches others ignore. They feel out of place, disconnected, like they don't fully belong to this version of the world. The files called these people temporal outliers. Not special, just slightly misaligned. And then there was the final warning buried deep in the documents. If humanity ever attempts to open ChronoGate again, time may not respond with silence. It may respond with correction on a massive scale, not individual memories, not small edits, but a full rollback, a return to a version of humanity that never tried to break the rules, which means the most dangerous moment in human history may not be behind us. It may be ahead of us, waiting for the moment someone decides to open the gate again. Because time doesn't punish curiosity, it corrects mistakes. And now that it knows we exist, it may already be deciding what version of us is allowed to continue. And here is the thought the ChronoGate files leave behind. If time really can correct itself, if it really can erase unstable paths, then history is not a record of what happened. It is a record of what was allowed to happen. Every strange coincidence, every disaster narrowly avoided, every moment where the world almost changed forever. Maybe those were versions that didn't survive. And this version of reality, the one you're living in right now, is simply the most stable one left. The ChronoGate scientists believed humanity crossed a line not because we traveled through time, but because we proved we could reach it. And once something knows you can reach it, you are no longer invisible. So the next time you feel déjà vu, the next time something feels slightly off, the next time history seems to rewrite itself, ask yourself one question: are you remembering something wrong? Or are you remembering a version of reality that time decided not to keep? Because if ChronoGate was real, then time is no longer just moving forward. It's watching and deciding. And somewhere beyond the limits of past and future, the gate may still be open, waiting to see what humanity does next.